Our first reading is an example of the Old Testament with views of a very old time. So close off your electronics, your fans and AC, move out of your homes and into tents. No more cars, and definitely no more stupid SUVs. Your camel or donkey are right about here. Maybe if you are or know or related to someone, you'll have a horse. And in the first century, females don't go stupid over horses. Now that you're in the right place physically, stew mentally. This is where Abram is. This is where 1/3 of the known population have enslaved more than their number to work in the fields, home, raise children, etc. It is not the slavery of 1820 US Alabama, but far worse times. Abram was 1800 BC, and it was entire populations enslaved by other entire populations, because as one people takes over an area, that people is enslaved. But it isn't the slavery of the south of the US. It is a different slavery. It is household chores, it is field work, it is things like that. But it isn't whipping or things like that. It comes much later. The slavery where there's the murdering and that such comes in about 300 years. That's where the Egyptians enslaved the entire population of the Jews and all of their slaves, all of the people of the lower Mesopotamia, all of the people of Canaan, all of the people of the Nile region. We're talking everyone. So when you think of slavery during this time, do not think of slaves of South US. Think of household people. This is also how they made their living. So they are slaves, but they are paid help. They are called slaves, but they are paid. Does that make sense? That is the only way to explain it. Some of them are slaves, for they are owned, but some of them are slaves paid. For this is the 18th century BC, or BCE if you prefer. So your eyes and your mind must think that way. They must not be thinking as a 21st century person with our views and our values. We cannot ever look at another time with our values. They have other values. They are another time. The reading today occurred 10 years after the reading yesterday, where God promised Abram a mighty race of warriors, as many descendants as pieces of dust. But nothing had come from Sarah. Many biblical stories make her age about, quote, 15 years younger than Abram. But Abram's, in his early to late 80s. But no fool is going to try to impregnate a 68-year-old woman whose courses would have stopped easily 35 to 40 years earlier. Even men aren't that thick. So she is likely in her late 30s, approaching her end of years. Thus the pressure to perform was greater. There are only so many ovum to work with. But it was that very unusual custom of that time, whereby the wife found and brought into the marriage a concubine that would fulfill the childbearing duties and nothing else sexually. This custom of an unfertile wife providing her husband with a concubine to produce children is widely attested to in the ancient Near Eastern law. The old Assyrian marriage contract states that the wife must provide her husband with a concubine if she does not bear children within 2 years. Because remember, marriage during this time is not a thing of love. It's a business contract. She must produce, or she's done. She's put aside. And having been put aside, she becomes household help. She loses her status completely, and the only thing available to her is to become hired help. That is the only thing she can do to put up for her keep. Because barrenness at this time normally is blamed on the woman, of course the man is never blamed, oh, God forbid, and is regarded as a disgrace. It is not surprising that Hagar looked down on Sarah. Ancient Near Eastern legal practice addresses such cases of insolent slaves and allows disciplining of them. Even Proverbs 30:23 uses as an example of intolerable behavior of a maidservant when she ousts her mistress. But the fact is, Abram raped a slave woman, forcibly impregnating her to get the son. No girl would have been accepted. He would have been on her again had not a boy dropped. That boy, Ishmael, aka Ibrahim to many Muslim texts, and the word Ishmael means God heard you, because that's why the messenger of God said, God heard you. That's why they named him. Name him Ishmael, God heard you. That's what the whole sentence means. Ibrahim in Muslim texts is born with the future burdens and already has a prophecy about him before his birth. His hand will be against everyone and everyone's hand against him. He will be in opposition to all his kin, and he shall encamp against them. Ibrahim, Ishmael, is an ancestor to Muhammad. He will build a portion of the Kaaba, and he will be a prophet in his own right, while establishing the 12 tribes of Ishmaelites within Israel. We will learn more about Ishmael, and his eeny-weeny sneaky brother, his view, not mine. And we will talk about the very brutal initial method of marking those who participate in the covenant between God and Abram. But keep your minds in the 18th century BC, so as to remove the 21st century feelings and condemnations. You can't view times 31 centuries ago with the prism of our values in our eyes. They are not the same world. Remember that. Times past long ago are not our time.